Hey guys, thanks for checking out another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. I am the Fat Guy. Most people call me Brett Mason, and I appreciate you listening today. If you haven't subscribed, the podcast will just show up on your device every time there's a new one, just like magic. And of course, you can get us in the iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store. I think we're still in Stitcher. I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you. Nevertheless, pretty much wherever you can find podcasts, you can find us. So subscribe and share. Let other people know about the podcast, because the only reason I do this is to help people. It's certainly not because I have just enormous amounts of free time to do nothing. So, and I'm happy to say I have helped a bunch of people and hope to help a lot more. So, little disclaimer, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving medical advice. All I'm sharing with you is my experiences. So what you choose to do with that is up to you. I would advise you to consult with a medical doctor, preferably one who understands ketogenic diet and understands its health benefits and understands how to monitor somebody on it. Nevertheless, that's a decision that you need to make. So let's jump into it. 120-pound weight loss. So I started my ketogenic diet in January of this year, 2017, and it was on January the 26th. So that's how long I've been keto. I will say that I wasn't 100% keto. I've had setbacks, of course. My mother passed away, so if you're new to the podcast, you probably haven't heard about that before, but I've talked about it some. But that was in September, and then I proceeded to go on I will say it was planned. I didn't sit around and screw up and just start eating cheesecakes. I planned it. Planned a trip to the casinos to stay a week, and with full intentions of carving out. I knew that it would cost me. I knew that the cost would be high, but I felt it was something I needed. It was a way to escape. My mother had been battling ovarian cancer for 5 years. The last 10 months were seriously severe with a lot of pain. She lived with me full time, and it was a very stressful, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching time. So I want to throw that caveat in there to let you know. I think I'd probably be at 130, 140 pounds for now if it hadn't been for that. But I had a 5-6 weeks kind of stall. I gained 9 pounds on that week. I did lose the 9 pounds back rather quickly, but then I just could not get back into ketosis because I was on a junk food thing. I'll tell you what I learned though, and I'm a believer that everything in life, whether it's your successes or your failures, you should never view them as either. You should view them as lessons. And that particular failure was a huge lesson to me, because when I came back, I buckled down for a few days and tried to get back, pretty healthy keto, pretty solid keto, and I lost the 9 pounds. But it's just so much depression and issues with my, with the issue of losing my mom. I just wanted junk food all the time. So I made a compromise, and I only did ketogenic junk food. So this was, I did hot dogs, I did cheese, I did junk food, keto desserts like smart cakes, keto fat bombs that I made, keto sandwiches, a lot of like the Quest protein chips, Quest bars, pork skins. It's just all junk food, like anything healthy. And I just never lost any weight. I didn't gain any, but I never lost any. I just stayed at that same weight for 4 or 5 weeks. And so, okay, it's a success and a failure. It's a success in that going through all that, I didn't gain weight, because my previous lifestyle after the passing of my mother, I promise you, not only would I have gained weight initially, I would have just kept gaining weight. So I do view it as a win that I maintained my weight while eating junk food. So that's there's 2 lessons. Lesson 1, the power of the keto diet is so powerful that you can live off nothing but junk food and maintain your weight. Try doing that on any other kind of junk food. The other lesson I learned is that keto junk food will not keep you in ketosis. And I didn't have a blood ketone meter. I was using this breath thing, which was just, it'd give you some rough idea, but it just, it was just not accurate at all, to be honest with you. And I don't recommend anybody buying one of those, no matter who makes it. But I finally got a blood ketone meter, and I can't say I was shocked, but I was mildly surprised to learn that I had no ketones. None. And I was doing keto. I was doing 20 grams or less of carbs a day, and I was doing, relatively high fat. It was just all junk food. So what do I learn from that? One, I think that some quote-unquote keto junk foods will kick you out of ketosis because of, I guess, what they're sweetened with or whatever. And the other thing I learned is that maybe they're just mislabeled. And I would have to test each food one by one to know which ones were mislabeled. Which ones was causing the problem. But I was keto junk food, full-blown 20 carbs or less for a good 3 weeks. And I had no presence of blood ketones. And so what that did was it kicked me into plan B, which is something I had debated a long time. It was actually my plan when I came back from the casino. My plan was I'm going to have a horrible eating habits at the casino. I'm probably going to gain a lot of weight. I'll definitely get out of ketosis, but I will recoup quickly and get back on track with a fast was my plan. So I was going to come back from Biloxi and fast for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And I didn't do it. I just didn't do it. It was just too hard. My brain could not get there. So after I got the blood ketone meter and saw that I had no ketones after all that time, I did the fast. Fasted for 5 days. And it was amazing. Amazing. After 24 hours, I was showing I think it was 0.1 or 0.2 ketones. I think by the second day it was 0.5 or 6 or 7. The third day it was a little over 1. By the time I ended it, I was 3.8, I think. So I was in a high level of ketosis and felt amazing. And it was it was really great. It was, again, another learning experience. I learned about extended fasting. I learned that it can be hell, especially if you're not in ketosis, which I wasn't. First and second day were really hell. Third day was tolerable. Fourth day I thought was good until I got to the fifth day, which was really good. So what is the theme of today's podcast? What would be my theme? My theme would be my new take on weight loss, health, diet, all that stuff. And I've run the gamut. So just a quick history. I started my weight loss journey in 2013. And lost a reasonable amount of weight, taking a product called Plexus. Problem with that was Plexus changed their formula and it stopped working for me. I was tied to a product that, and granted, I would have never lost all the weight I needed on Plexus, but it did give me a jump start. The only benefit to that was before they changed the formula and things started going bad with the product and the company, by the way, I had already decided that this wasn't sustainable and I needed to take this momentum and transform it into a healthy diet and lifestyle. So I began researching and I came up with a vegan diet. So I was transitioning more and more to a plant-based diet and eventually stopped taking the Plexus. And the plant-based diet was really awesome and worked. And the next thing you know, I was still losing some more weight, and I got into walking, and then I started jogging a little bit, and then I got an injury. And I gained all the weight back that I had lost, which was 50, 60 pounds, which is about half of what I've lost now with keto. I was in depression after the injury. I was pretty much chair-ridden or bed-ridden or couch-ridden 90% of the time. And, it was horrible gaining all that weight back. It was really rough on me. Again, lessons learned, though. I learned a lot of lessons. I learned sustainable weight loss wouldn't happen from a powder or a pill or a potion. I learned that a proper diet was very powerful and that I could do it. I learned that while exercise is good, a person of my size shouldn't really push it that hard because an injury can be devastating. So I learned, again, these are all lessons. They were failures, but they were lessons. January this year, let me go back. December of the year before, December 2016, my mom was hospitalized for several weeks. And that's when my vegan plant-based diet came crashing down. It was impossible to be in that hospital and eat plant-based. They had salads, and that was about it. They were very expensive. And they had they had loose fruit. They had a little store that wasn't the cafeteria. It was like a side store, and they had loose bananas in there most of the time. But I think they were like $1.99 each or something. Way ridiculous to try to eat them. And I mean, that was the choices. And I tried so hard to eat vegan in there, and I was starving, and I couldn't leave. I wouldn't leave. And, I probably could have asked people to bring me 2 or 3 vegan meals a day. But here's what I'll say about vegan. It's plant-based, it's high carb, and while it will work to a certain extent and may be right for some people, you have to eat all the time. And that's originally what I liked about it. I was like, I'm a person who likes to eat. Here's a diet where I have to eat all the time. Because it's so calorie poor, you fill yourself up and then you have to constantly eat again. And so it required a lot of eating, and it didn't work. So lessons learned on that trip was, because I wound up gaining 20 pounds from that hospital stay. And then in January, when I found keto, it wasn't even really for me. Like, I had abandoned dieting altogether. Or not dieting, but eating any kind of specific way. I was just eating whatever I wanted and just trying to limit my calories a little bit and triage the damage so that I could stop the blood flow, so I could just hold what I had. And I did. I was holding what I had, but I wasn't happy. If you've ever done calorie restriction where you do this quote unquote everything in moderation, it's hard because you don't get to eat that much, and you're restricting every meal. And anyway, but I was holding my own. My mom couldn't eat, and I was trying to figure out ways to get calories with her in small amounts of food. In other words, I wanted her to eat the smallest mass, the smallest quantity of food to get the maximum calories. And my research in that led me to keto food, which is calorie dense. It's calorie dense food. And so that's what I started trying to find and get my mom. And I created this shake that 8 ounces was like 1,000 calories. So if I could only get 16 calories in her a day, she'd get 2,000 calories. And it completely pulled my mom from the brink of death. And in the meantime, I made the leap into a keto diet for a lot of reasons. For simplicity, but I was intrigued by it. And so that led me to this point. So to sum up what I've learned over my journey, it's really been a 4-year journey is what it's been now looking back. It's hard to believe that I started seriously committing to losing weight 4 years ago. Over 4 years ago now. We'll be coming up on 5 years in a few months. But all that time, here's the lessons you should take from that. One is to never give up, because even though I kept having these failures, I can promise you I've reached the stage where I will not fail. I have reached the stage where failure will not happen, because I now understand metabolic syndrome. I now understand insulin resistance. I now actually understand why I got fat, that it was not my fault per se, and that by knowing the truth about how food works, the truth about how calories and fat and carbs and protein works, I'm empowered to eat delicious food, all the food I want, not have hunger, and have my body actually work with me to lose weight rather than me fighting it like most diets do. It's just amazing. So that would be my advice to you. No matter how many times you failed, don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's where people mess up. They're like, I keep trying. I've tried for years. Well, they usually have tried the same diet. You just keep restricting. It's just based on moderation and calorie restriction, and that diet will never work. So I'm not saying don't give up and keep doing that over and over again. What I'm saying is the lesson is don't give up. Keep educating yourself. Keep trying new things. Keep reading research. Keep learning everything you can. I think I've probably done that for you, and that probably 90% of people listening to me, the keto diet is the way for you, because you probably do have insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, possibly even type 2 diabetes, which of course is the most advanced stage of metabolic syndrome. And so the keto diet is definitely the answer for you. So that'd be lesson number one. Lesson number two that I've learned, and I've learned this lesson within the past few months, it's that you don't necessarily need to have just one strategy. There's several strategies that work, because once you understand that the secret to weight loss and health is keeping your insulin low as long as possible, you then discover that there's many ways to achieve that. And again, calorie restriction doesn't achieve that. That's why calorie restriction doesn't work. It'll work over the short term, but it requires an enormous amount of willpower, and your body's constantly fighting you, and your body never switches over to burning fat and working with you. Not in the way it does with keto, or the way it does with intermittent fasting, or now extended fasting. So I've added all these tools to my repertoire. It's a ketogenic diet, it's intermittent fasting, and now I've started implementing extended fasting. All these do the same thing. All of them have the same goal. They keep your insulin level down. And when your insulin level is down, your insulin level is low, your body releases fat and burns it. It doesn't burn it straight away. It goes through this process, gets converted into ketone bodies, and then your cells burn ketone bodies. But the simplistic way of saying it is your body burns fat. So that's the key to success. Your body then is working with you instead of fighting you. Because in the other ones, your body never when you just do calorie restriction, your body never switches over to a fat burning machine. It's still a carb, sugar burning machine. And so while it will begrudgingly turn loose of some fat, it will constantly fight you to bring carbs in, because it's like, carbs is what I run on. Carbs and sugar is what fuels me. And your body will constantly be fighting you to feed it carbs, and it will eventually win, because your body thinks it's dying. It thinks that it needs to store that fat. It reluctantly turns loose of that fat. It's your survival mechanism. And your survival mechanism states that to survive, you need to have a certain amount of energy storage on your body in the form of fat for when bad times come. You never convince your body otherwise. You never convince your body that it's getting a lot of food and that it's okay to burn fat with the insulin trigger. And so, sure, the first 2 weeks of keto can be difficult. There's an adjustment phase mentally. There's an adjustment phase physically. I'd say it probably takes about to the third week before you even reach a reasonable level of comfort with it. But once you achieve that, and all my experience of all my lifelong years of dieting, the ketogenic diet, the ketogenic way of eating, is the only way of eating to where it gets easier the more you go rather than harder. Because once you get over that hump, and then your body starts burning fat for fuel, and you start producing ketone bodies, and then your body gets better and better at using ketone bodies, then it actually starts thriving on ketone bodies, then you're fine. The only thing you have left to deal with is the willpower. And I will say that there is willpower involved, but it's so easy. It takes such a tiny amount of willpower. I mean, you have to, in the sense that you have to wake up and go, I'm going to be keto today. That's the willpower it requires. If you'll just make the decision to be keto every day and not eat something that's not keto, your body will work right with you. And you won't have the horrible cravings. You won't have the horrible fight with your body over food. And the exact opposite happens on calorie restriction diets. There is not enough willpower in the world to fight your body once it thinks that it needs carbs to survive. And it will reluctantly burn fat. And you will reluctantly lose weight. But it's kind of like stretching a rubber band. The farther you get, the tighter the resistance. The farther you get, the tighter the resistance. So the further you go into a standard calorie restriction diet, the more your body's going to fight you and fight you and fight you. And that's why the number is astronomically high. It's over 95% of people who diet fail long term. I think it's 98%. So the 2% do succeed, fight it so long that they finally get their fat so low that they kind of heal up some of those metabolic issues. And the ketogenic diet you take away the metabolic issues immediately, like almost immediately. And so it's just a huge difference. So I know today's podcast has been kind of rambling, but I had a few broad stroke themes that I wanted to cover. And that was, what I've done, the way I've eaten, the struggles that I've had since I began this weight loss journey in earnest. I mean, where I refuse to lose. And let me be clear about that. I have went on diets many times over the course of my life wanting to lose weight. And I really did want to lose weight. There'd be no doubt about it. I wanted to lose weight. But the difference between all those times and what happened to me in April of 2013 was I was determined to lose weight, and I refused to accept failure as an option. Like, no way would I fail. And I had a genesis for that. I had a spark for that, and it was my mom's health. My mom was into cancer. She, 6 or 7 months earlier, she'd been diagnosed. She went through the surgery. The surgery was hell. I had to walk miles and miles of hospital halls and doctor visits with her, and then wait on her hand and foot while she recovered from this traumatic exploratory surgery. And I was not healthy enough to do that. It was killing me. And I knew that my mom's condition would get worse. I had hopes that chemo would make her better, but barring some miraculous event, you don't survive cancer, and it only gets worse. So yes, my mom did recover and had some good years, I don't think she ever had a full good year, but she had big portions of years that were good. And she didn't need me, but a lot of times she did need me. And then at the end, she really needed me. And at the end, when she really started needing me, I think I was 60 or 70 pounds lighter. I gained some of it back. And then keto, I really shed it and felt better than ever. And I can say that the last months my mom lived on this earth, when she needed me the most to wait on her hand and foot 24/7, I felt the best that I'd felt since my 20s. So I feel in that sense that I achieved yet another success. And that was my goal in 2013. I refused to lose. I refused to fail. I was determined to drop weight, to be in a position to be the best caretaker I could be for my mom as she needed it. So with that, I'll wrap up the podcast today. It was a highly personal podcast, but I hope you gain a lot from it, that there's one way to really relatively easily lose weight, and that is keep your insulin low. Keep it as low as possible for as long as possible. 2, there's several ways of achieving that, and you should use them all together. Primarily, what you eat is your ketogenic diet. How you eat is intermittent fasting, and the time that you eat is a big part of that. And that you have the several tools and that you use them. And that when you mess up, you don't view it as a failure. You view it as a learning experience. Figure out what you learned from that, and then apply what you've learned going forward to be even more successful. And you can do it. You can do it. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks for subscribing to the podcast, listening to the podcast. Thanks for all the many messages and support I've gotten. And if there's any time I can help you, let me know. We're on all the social media. It's Fat Guy Podcast. So whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, username is Fat Guy Podcast. You can find us that way. And subscribe to the podcast as well. And I appreciate you listening. Have a great day.